new episode of our podcast journey exploring how vet educators can become data masters and empowering the younger generations in becoming data driven professionals. So far, Data Unlocked has been an interesting journey that have offered actual support in understanding how to collect data, how to analyze it, how to use it, and report vital information across wide range of sectors and domain, both in the private world and in the public decision making space. Our goal for today is to explore another vital area that data can cover in the VET courses, so in vocational education and trainings, and I'm talking about tourism. So, tourism is a dynamics industry where professionals with different backgrounds are expected to address shifting changes, consider customers' behavior, economic factors, and global events. And one of the biggest forces that's driving its transformation today is data. So, forecasting seasonal demand or personalizing customers' experience or improving destination management, considering the money that's being spent during vacations. So, data is really essential in understanding the sector. It's an essential tool for businesses, for government, for policymakers, and for professionals in the sector. For vets, teachers, integrating data literacy into tourism education is an important part of preparing students to navigate this competitive industry, teaching students how to interpret visitors' trends, how to analyze business performance, how to leverage data and digital tools for marketing sites, and to give a strong foundation for success in, for instance, hospitality, travel planning, and data tourism. These are all important aspects that we'll try to uncover today. To guide us through this topic, I'm really happy to welcome Federico Geremei, an expert with extensive experience in travel journalism, media consulting, and data analysis. Federico has worked with major publications and organizations to analyze tourism trends and to provide insights that shape industry strategies. So, today, what I would like to ask him, obviously, is to help us understand a bit more how vet educators can bring data management concepts into the classroom. So, Federico, thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure for me
So,
too, and an honor as well.
wonderful. So, my first question, obviously, I would like to start by asking you what makes data in the tourism sector so unique? What are the most important type of data that's used in tourism? And if you can give us just like maybe a quick overview.
Well, let's start by saying that the tourism sector, as we all know, features distinctive and diverse degrees of complexity. Number one, for example, it is at the same time both global and intrinsically local. And it is the only large-scale industry that spans across other major large-scale industries. Just to mention a few: mobility and transport, accommodation, dining, shopping, and so forth. So, rather than a constellation of operators and stakeholders, it's rather a galaxy. So, it's a really wide and diverse ecosystem. Number three, for example, it is fully service centered and highly goods dependent, like other industries, but to a bigger extent. And four, just to mention fourth component, it really blends self-catering with different levels of autonomy and independence of the final user, so to speak. So coming to data, short answer number one would be length of stay, number of nights. For years and decades, maybe this has been the main metric in tourism. Of course, it's still used, it's still very important. It grants that data are comparable, but again, of course, it's a very tiny fraction of knowledge that we can extract from data in tourism. Short answer number two would be the expected average expenditure. But to provide something which is more interesting, usable, and useful, I would say that a simple taxonomy to start from would be destination specific data versus non destination specific data. Pre trip data, for example, on search and planning, this is really where AI is delving into, versus impact data, mostly on the aggregated side of things. One Other component that we can use for this basic level zero taxonomy would be data loyalty and affiliation. It's very important when it comes to large carriers, transport carriers, like airlines, of course, and rail transport, but also on accommodation, of course. Very important. One more thing that I believe that's very important to highlight is that tourism statistics and tourist data in general, they have an amazing potential, and many of them they kind of bring some weaknesses with them, and this is mainly timeliness and comparability. On the timeliness side, and I'm referring mostly on public data. Public data tend to be more robust and potentially integrable, trustworthy, and so forth. Comparability, of course, their integration issues across regional markets have been tackled for decades, and many initiatives have been put in place. Still, not enough results, at least on the public side or in the hybrid public and private side of things.
Thank you for this first answer. I think we already have some elements that are quite interesting and I would like to develop further during our conversation. But before, I know sometimes I can be impatient, so our listeners know they have to bear with me. But before digging into those aspects, I would like to ask you a sort of follow up question about the Italian situation. We know tourism is a key aspect of our economy, and it's one of the most important, and Italy is one of the most important destinations in the global market. So following up to your previous answer, would you say there's something more specific about the Italian tourism sector?
And of course, Italy is a destination country, and given my statements on the travel industry being an industry of industry, of course, we have to add one more component, one more layer. It's like, are we talking about inbound or outbound? Because we are a country, of course, a destination country. So inbound statistics and travel can provide many insights, but also we are a country with almost 60 million residents. So we also like a departure country. If
Mhm.
you allow me this term. And I've been collecting to prepare for it. On preparing for this interview, I've been collecting a few data, very recent, so they're kind of updated. And just three, just to mention, on the hospitality sector, it's still growing. It's really growth on board with hotels and other forms of accommodation, mostly B&Bs and so forth, really leading the growth, again, growth and growth. So plus 5% last year. Then tour operators and travel agencies. This is very interesting data. It really took 5 years, but lastly, tour operators and travel agencies really took 5 years. But now they've bounced back up to the pre-COVID levels. And of course, what's very interesting is the AI and travel startups on the global market, but also on the Italian market. They're really growing, experimenting, mostly focusing on the inspiring plan side of travel. And this, of course, sees Italians as more users than developers of these tools. But again, this is a really global market, so this could also be beneficial for Italy as a destination for foreign travelers using, let's say, foreign apps on the Inspire and Plan. It's a bit early to see, but we are seeing a interesting trend there, an emerging trend. And this data come from the very recent report from Politecnico di Milano Osservatorio on Travel Innovation.
Yeah. Well, in your countries, I know for sure you have the same entities. So that's already a key point to write down in your notes and something you can do a follow up on after listening to this interview. So thank you, Federico. Obviously, in this answer, you've started to give us like some input on how you're using data to analyze the trends. And so I would like to ask you, based on this, like your personal way of using data to analyze the sector, and as a travel journalist and consultant, how do you use data in a more maybe extensive way to analyze trends and predict maybe shifts in the tourism sector? And if you can obviously give us maybe another example related to a tourism sort of tourism related projects where data played maybe a key role, a crucial role in shaping maybe the operations.
Yeah, sure. A pleasure. Well, let me just start by answering that predicting new trends is really a hard job in the insurance sector, especially if one has a midterm and large scale outlook or perspective. So it's much easier and safer, so to speak, analyzing current trends as they, so to speak, unfold. This is, let's say, less problematic. So more on analyzing current trends or emerging trends rather than predicting new trends on a large scale midterm perspective. Last years have been focusing on some areas of research slash communication for curiosity, for interest, and also, of course, for consultancies for the public and the private sector. So I would say one would be emerging trends. Speaking of new trends, but emerging trends. So trends which
Okay.
are there, and especially on niche tourism. So specific sub-markets in the tourist sector, which is interesting. Some of them I are very promising. Some they level off. Some they go up and down. So again, there's a lot to see there. Some are recurrent trends. So when it comes to seasonality, it's really a dream and a nightmare at the same time for data analysts and the travel sectors because seasonality is really the key. And so emerging trends and niche tourism, ESG issues. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance issues in tourism. You really have to be there. You really have to know how they work and monitor it. And of course, this is very interesting because there is standards there, there is procedures, and there is kind of a common ground. Not there yet, but enough to tackle comparability issues with some confidence. So emerging trends in niche tourism, ESG issues. Started focusing. It's a bit early stage now. We started focusing on the visitors, residents, dynamics, and application. It's very interesting. It's kind of complicated. Again, you can do without them. And this also has to do with ESG issues, especially on the S, which is social component of it. And next step would be urban mobility. I live in Rome, it's a huge city, and the urban mobility component of travel it's more and more central, more and more crucial because it has to do with specific, with a growing audience. So the user space is growing, it's getting more global, at the same time more local. So it's really booming and growing and putting roots on the ground, and also interesting because it really has to do with different way of interacting with the public sector on the institutional side, and really it's really a question of destination management. So these two new areas of research for me are visitor resident dynamics and urban mobility. So that's one very interesting thing I'm working on. It's a bit early stage, but it's really interesting, at least for me. I don't know, just to show that some basics are still there and new frontiers, so to speak, are not far away on the horizon. And I also been working in developing metrics of authenticity in travel. And this is more like a nerdy thing, how you define authenticity, how you can measure authenticity, how you can communicate authenticity, because everybody's looking for something authentic. But what does it mean in really philosophical linguistic terms, and how can you measure it if you can measure it? And how can you be consistent over time and place? So I'm developing metrics of authenticity in the travel sector. This goes for operators, specific services, specific activities, and of course also for destinations as well. So this is again pioneer work, still early stage, but in my opinion, really worth putting effort in it. One day you will be saying, "Yeah, I heard that." Federico Geremei told us, "I don't want to be any guru, not just singing." But this is really something I put a lot of effort, and you can see, as you can see, a lot of passion in.
But let's hope our audience will be able to experience it directly, maybe in a follow-up sessions in the following years. Let's just wait and see what Federico has there for us. So thank you also for giving us this insight, sort of like scoop on what you're working on and how these metrics can be integrated into the sector. And I would like to ask you about the use of digital platforms in the sector. Like, how has the rise of these digital platforms or AI powered platforms in certain cases, like, I don't know, booking websites, social media influence, whatever, how have they influenced the way that data is being collected and used in the sector? And how do companies use customer data also to improve the services they provide and to personalize experience?
Of course, this is a huge topic. I would just like to give some points on this. Of course, on the AI side, let's say this is amazing. I am an old-fashioned statistician. I've been educated as a statistician, so really on the nerdy side of the analysis. But really, AI is super powerful. But I would say at this stage in tourism, mostly to get a wide, increasingly wider understanding of how the ecosystem works rather than deep for now. So maybe in a month, in a year from now, I'll be I will have to say, okay, I was wrong or it was not that early. But let's say AI for having an interesting understanding of how things work in travel, and of course, very vertical and very deep, but only on specific sectors. AI, as I was briefly mentioning a few minutes ago, AI in the travel sector is very interesting and promising. The developments are on the inspire and plan and the pre-trip activities or personalization, let's say self-catering activities before really taking off, let's say. And on on the digital component, what can I say? There is so much I can say. I would say that it's widely used for targeting marketing and promotion, direct marketing, indirect marketing, and again, AI tools, of course, can provide together with a lot of digital data. The major breakthrough, I would say, is the real-time data, and of, but only if and when, or mostly if and when combined with mobility data. This is easy to understand, hard to define, and also hard to see the developments of this. Of course, the real-time data has been there for ages, or I mean, relative terms, it's been there for years, almost decades. But now they've been used in a consistent and effective way. But talking about concept, I would say targeting marketing and promotion would be the easy arena, the easiest playground to start working with this stuff, and it's already been there. Another interesting component would be the shopping and retail component in travel, the so-called swipe economy. Transactions, also physical transactions now are really done with a credit card, and this is amazing, and this is amazing. There is an amazing potential, knowledge potential out there. So really, on the shopping side of tourism, it's really a lot to say, a lot to be extracted, but it's hard to say, and I can't disclose much on this, but it's really, of course, in the hands of big corporations and private corporations. Nothing against them, but of course, it's hard to know exactly what data they collect or what kind of data intelligence they extract. There's a huge, amazing data lakes there, and I'm sure there is a lot which is being done there. But again, this is super private because, of course,
Thinking about what you're saying about this kind of data, real world experiences, shopping data, mobility, and so on, like, well, the audience of this podcast series are mostly teachers, educators, especially from vocational education training programs. And in your opinion, how can they use like this real world data sets and data available in their lesson planning?
well, again, there's a lot can be done there. I would start by saying that first of all, my suggestion is before using data and formulas and numbers and figures, they should be acquainted with tourist glossary and master the industry-specific terminology. I know this is kind of boring, but it's really, really necessary because this you can really use data if you know what they mean and what they refer to,
Hmm.
how they've been produced, by who, how, and what the choices have been done in collecting data and distributing data. So be acquainted with tourist glossary and master the industry-specific terminology. Again, on the boring side of things, country-specific governance principles and legal frameworks. Again, read above, and for the same reasons, also be acquainted with governance principles when it comes to the private, public usage and production of data. And going more on the practical, level, I would say basic notions of statistics before using statistical data in the trade sector. Really go for the basis. I don't know what the audience here exactly is. I guess there's some teachers who know a lot about statistics and data processing. Others might be not that on a that advanced level. So I would say like a one for many answer. So basic notions of statistics, and we'll start with play with large data sets and on handling and merging and making queries on large data sets. So DB techniques really master data sets in terms of physical mastering them, like uploading and downloading, but also make sense of them. So start working with large data sets on the handling and merging side. Basic sampling techniques, confidence intervals, and so forth. Time series analysis, this is super important, and also automation of statistical procedures, because that AI powered or non AI powered. And the good news here is that you don't need like a professional statistical software, which of course would be ideal, but also like spreadsheets can do really a lot. Like in macro, and you can really do a lot. All what I've been saying before, large data set, sampling techniques, confidence intervals, and so forth, time series, you can do a lot with like basic spreadsheet.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're jumping from one episode to the other without following any particular order, I would advise you go back to the interview we did with Andrea, where we were talking about how to use spreadsheets in an effective way, and also other like support platforms that can help you really analyze the information starting from your spreadsheet. I think in that episode we even mentioned Microsoft Power BI as something you
All
should
right,
really
cool.
be accustomed to. So just go back to the episode and get track of what we are saying together again. And then I'll obviously ask Federico as well to provide more examples of platforms that can be used in this set. So
Yeah,
bear with us. We're
yeah,
almost there.
we are creating bridges among
Exactly,
podcasts.
exactly. No, because when we start talking about data literacy, we start talking about platforms. There's this idea that you should be just jumping from one platform to the other because there's always something new and more exciting to explore. When what we teach in our training programs, but also what we're trying to explain with this podcast, is that sometimes when you go to which features they have, how they work exactly, you find out that there are many similarities. And sometimes, if you are really skilled with a sort of what you consider maybe basic, actually, that's not basic. That helps you gain a better understanding on how the platforms out there are working. So it's not just jumping from one platform to the other. It's like being able to fully master data analysis, to fully master these, I would say, this sector, this interesting aspect. So that's why also our podcast has its name that it has. Then, so we're talking about data mastery for vet teachers. So these are just some inputs that can really help you navigate it in a better way, I would say. Maybe I'm biased. I'm the host of this podcast, so I might be talking too much, but just you can do what you want to do with my advice. Let's continue with our list of questions. Federico, I have like 100 of questions for you, but for a time constraint, I'll have to, just choose a few. And then obviously our audience can continue, can reach out, they can listen to all the other podcasts and find other additional information. The question I want to ask you now is about which specific competencies you think that teachers should be concerned of transmitting to the students, and also which common mistakes they can make about data interpretation. Because once you analyze your data set, once you have the information, you've created your lesson plan, you are trying to equip your students with the knowledge, which are the common mistakes that are normally made and that you think our teachers can support their students in avoiding?
Right. And here too, I came with four major areas of misinterpretation, let's say mistakes. They are not in order, so you can change the sequence. But let's say one would be underestimation of unreported data. Super important. We can measure anything. Not everything is measured. Not everything is measured the right way. So there is lots of biases. I would say underestimation of unreported data. Number two, maybe would be number one. Let's say the second one would be overconfidence in midterm forecasts. Some forecasts are done not properly, and people, also we, the media, sometimes just take them for gold. Like, okay, this is because it sounds appealing, it's interesting, but it's not. It's not reliable. It's not trustworthy, maybe because there is some promotion in it, so to speak. So they kind of there's also a different layer of biases involved in that. So overconfidence in midterm forecast. Number three would be lack of ability in spotting slash understanding minimal fluctuations in seasonality. That's very important, but this is for maybe a little bit more advanced. So the lack of ability in spotting minimal fluctuations in seasonality, because this is where interesting, inspiring insights come from. And the fourth one would be certifications, labels, awards, and so forth. You really have to take this with a huge pinch of salt. But this is more, I would say, for media professionals, people working in the media industry rather than data analysts. But these things come from data. That would be my 4 points.
Thank you. Thank you. And I would like to ask you, like, thinking about the subsectors you've mentioned today, like, for example, hospitality, can you suggest sort of a practical workshop that they can do about data management in hospitality? Just think of a short workshop, something you might do, obviously, and that our teachers can get some like tips from.
So maybe one activity would be really understanding the basic supply demand fundamentals, and on the supply side, really principle of pricing and notions of dynamic pricing. There's really a word out there that's very interesting. There is lots of maths involved, like basic maths, but very interesting. On the non-data or data, but data-related side of things, I would say HR management and role play and the staff dynamics. Because whenever you're talking to a hotelier, it can be a corporate level or like independent hotel, they say we have issues with HR managing and the staff issues, both on the data side of things and on the human side of stuff. So again, human intelligence and AI. So that could be interesting. Maybe I don't know. I'm not an expert in this, but I would suggest maybe you play a little bit with HR management dynamics and role play in workshops, combined with again other more data centered activities, and or on a wider level, maybe reading industry or reports together on a regular base, and maybe compare past forecasts with actual events. And one more thing, speaking about bridging between different podcasts, would be experiment under guidance with data visualization tools. That's very important. Just to go beyond words and numbers, but also have some on the visual side of it, but only under guidance, let's say, like a medical advice, and only after you really have a really thorough sense of data.
Thank you. Absolutely. I agree 100%, and I think that it's also something that we've been trying, each episode we try to put like some hints there and to see if well, obviously everyone is free to accept which side of the episode it's better for them and works better for them. So thank you also for adding this your few elements to this our list of interesting tips for our teachers. So are there like free accessible resources, data sets, reports, things like that you might recommend them and that students might find interesting?
Well, as I said, the most interesting data is private. I have to say that
Obviously.
we have to be aware of this. On the public and publicly available data, I would say SKIFT, SKIFT, releases regular interesting reports. Much of this is private or under license, or you have to pay a subscription fee and so on. Some of that or some executive summaries are available. So I would say Skift or maybe
Mhm.
tourism.ai on the artificial intelligence in tourism, or tourism 4.0. That's an interesting one again. Or GSTC, of course. The Deploy initiative. this is for Europe. It's a common European tourist data space together with the DATES project, DATES like DATES, and of course you have national statistical institutes. But again, bear in mind the two main issues, two, the two main sources of weakness that we have with this kind of data is that these data are not that timely and not that comparable. But they're working on it, so at least they're trustworthy and robust. So it's always a trade-off.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Federico, for uncovering some interesting aspects of this highly dynamic sector. Also, saying to what we know, to the extent we know today, we don't know, it might change really fast. We know how quickly things are going on in each sector, and the tourism sector is no less. So, we know that as vet educators, helping our students understand more about data literacy and acquiring data analysis skills, it's vital in preparing I would say rounded candidates for the job market, and that can be able to analyze both foreseeable and also unexpected changes in the industry. So I think we've provided some great input for our teachers, but also for the students that might happen also to listen to this podcast. As always, for each episode we've been through till today, we encourage you to explore the insights that we shared and to find also new and interesting ways to integrate this data into your lesson planning. We gave you some inputs. Normal, we also try to divide them in like 50 minutes lessons, but this you can really do. I think we've added so much today that we can't put everything in a 50-minute lesson plan. So we'll leave it to you to do the work. Maybe you can share it with us through the project platforms and through the email address you'll find link to the episode. Thank you again for following the series. We hope these discussions will really like give you takeaways, like practical takeaways for your teaching. Don't forget to follow all project platforms and handbooks for additional information and resources, including our teachers handbook. So that's all for today, and I would say until next time. Bye everyone, and bye Federico.
Bye. Thanks for having me. Bye.